Sunrise Gulch, Arkansas, late summer 1897. Minnie Wade stepped off the dusty stagecoach onto the salt flat at high noon and found herself staring at an empty boarding house porch where her mail-order groom should have been waiting. The mirages shimmered across the white expanse, making the small cluster of wooden buildings waver like a fever dream. She clutched her carpet bag and the letter that had promised a new life, a partnership, a home. The stage driver tipped his hat and drove away before she could ask him to wait. The boarding house door opened, and a gray-haired woman peered out, squinting against the glare.
You must be Minnie Wade. I am real sorry to tell you this, but Thomas Kirkland left town 3 days ago, took his things, and disappeared in the night.
Minnie felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. She had sold everything she owned back in Missouri to come here, to start fresh after years of running a boarding kitchen for miners who never saw her as anything but a cook. She had been bold enough to answer the ad, funny enough to make him laugh in his letters, but secretly lonely enough to hope this time would be different.
I spent my last dollar on the stage fare. I have nowhere else to go.
The older woman sighed and opened the door wider. The woman said she could stay 2 nights while she figured things out, but after that the room was spoken for. Minnie thanked her and climbed the narrow stairs to the 2nd floor, her legs shaking. She set her bag on the thin mattress and pulled out the letters Thomas had sent. They were kind, measured, promising. He had written about his freight business, about needing a partner who could manage accounts and help him expand. She had believed him. Now she wondered if any of it had been true. She opened the small drawer in the bedside table and found it empty, except for a folded piece of paper wedged in the back corner. She pulled it out and smoothed it flat. It was a hand-drawn map, crude but detailed, showing the river crossings around Sunrise Gulch and a route marked in red ink that cut northeast toward the rail line. In the margin, someone had written the word Hargrove and a date, 2 weeks out. Minnie frowned and folded the map into her pocket. Downstairs, she asked the older woman if she knew why Thomas might have left so suddenly. The woman glanced toward the window and lowered her voice. She said there had been trouble with Ramsey Hargrove, the man who owned the ferry crossing. He had been raising his rates every month, trapping people who could not afford to leave. The town was dying slowly, businesses closing as the stage line threatened to reroute around them entirely. Thomas had been asking questions, talking to travelers, mapping something. Then, he vanished. Minnie felt a chill despite the heat. She tucked the map deeper into her pocket and asked where she might find work. The woman suggested the general store or the saloon, but warned her that Hargrove had his fingers in everything and did not take kindly to newcomers stirring things up. Minnie thanked her and walked into the noon glare, shading her eyes as she crossed the street toward the row of storefronts. The town felt like a held breath, everyone waiting for something to break. She pushed open the door of the general store and a bell jangled overhead. The man behind the counter looked up, his face lined and tired. She asked if he needed help, and he shook his head. He said he could barely keep the store open as it was, with Hargrove charging double to bring supplies across the river. He said if the railroad did not come through soon, Sunrise Gulch would be a ghost town by winter. Minnie nodded and turned to leave, but a voice from the doorway stopped her.
Excuse me, miss. I could not help overhearing. You are new in town.
She turned and found herself looking at a man in a tan duster, his hat shadowing sharp gray eyes. He was tall, lean, with the patient stillness of someone used to watching and waiting. He carried a leather satchel across his chest, and his hands were empty. But she had the sense he could move fast if he needed to.
I arrived this morning. My name is Minnie Wade.
Edwin Matthews. I buy cattle for eastern markets. I have been traveling this territory for 3 years, and I have never seen a town this tense.
He glanced past her toward the counter, then back to her face.
If you are looking for work, I could use someone with a steady hand and a clear head. I need help organizing my records and mapping the rail routes. It does not pay much, but it is honest.
Minnie studied him. His voice was wry, almost amused, but his eyes were watchful, taking in every detail. She thought of the map in her pocket and the word Hargrove scrawled in the margin.
Why would a cattle buyer need someone to map rail routes?
Because the routes determine where the buyers set up, and right now there is a fight brewing over which town gets the spur line. Whoever controls the crossing controls the route, and whoever controls the route controls everything.
He said it calmly, like he was discussing the weather, but Minnie heard the edge beneath the words. She made a decision.
I will take the job. When do we start?
Now, if you are willing. I have a room at the boarding house. We can work there.
They walked back across the street together, the salt flat shimmering around them. Minnie felt the eyes of the town on her back, curious and wary. Upstairs in the small room Edwin had rented, he spread a larger map across the table and weighted the corners with smooth river stones. Minnie pulled the folded paper from her pocket and set it beside his. He went very still, then picked it up and examined it closely.
Where did you find this?
In a drawer in my room. The man I was supposed to marry left it behind when he disappeared 3 days ago. His name was Thomas Kirkland.
Edwin looked at her sharply.
Thomas Kirkland was gathering information for me. He was supposed to meet me here last week with proof that Hargrove has been bribing the Territorial Survey Office to reroute the stage line away from Sunrise Gulch and through his ferry crossing exclusively. If the railroad follows the stage route, Hargrove will have a monopoly on all traffic through this region.
Then why did Thomas run?
Because Hargrove found out, and Thomas was not the kind of man to stand and fight.
Minnie felt a flare of anger, sharp and hot. She had traveled hundreds of miles for a man who had fled at the first sign of danger, leaving her stranded. But she swallowed the anger and focused.
What do we do now?
We finish what he started. This map shows the crossings, but we need the survey reports to prove Hargrove is tampering with the route. Those reports should be filed at the county office, but I would bet money they have been moved or destroyed.
Then, we need to find them before Hargrove realizes we are looking.
Edwin smiled, a slow wry curve of his mouth.
I like the way you think, but you should know, if we do this, we are putting ourselves in his sights. Hargrove does not just overcharge. He threatens families, burns businesses, and he has the sheriff in his pocket.
Then, we will have to be smarter than he is.
They spent the rest of the afternoon cross-referencing the maps, marking every river crossing and every town along the proposed rail line. As the sun dropped lower, painting the salt flat orange and gold, Edwin leaned back and rubbed his eyes.
There is one other thing. A woman came through town 2 weeks ago, selling hand-copied recipe books. She said she was raising money for a church in Little Rock. People bought them because they were curious, but no one has tried the recipes yet. I think those books contain coded messages. Thomas mentioned them in his last letter. He said the woman was connected to the survey office.
Do you know where the books are now?
Scattered all over town. Different families bought them. If we can collect them and decode the messages, we might have the proof we need.
Minnie stood and straightened her shawl.
Then we start asking around tomorrow. Tonight, we rest.
Edwin nodded, but his expression stayed watchful. As Minnie turned to leave, he spoke again.
Miss Wade, why did you come all this way to marry a stranger?
She paused in the doorway, her back to him.
Because I was tired of being invisible. I wanted to be a partner, not just a pair of hands in a kitchen. I thought he saw that in me.
He did. That is why he trusted you enough to leave that map where you would find it. He knew you would not run.
Minnie looked over her shoulder and met his eyes.
And you? Why are you risking your neck for a town that is not even yours?
Because I am tired of watching bullies win. And because someone has to stand up.
She nodded and closed the door softly behind her. That night she lay awake in the narrow bed, listening to the wind pick up outside, rattling the shutters. Somewhere in the distance dry lightning flickered, silent and eerie. She thought about the map, about Thomas running, about Edwin standing calm and wry in the face of danger. She thought about the recipe books and the coded messages hidden inside them. And she thought about Ramsay Hargrove, hot-tempered and violent, keeping dossiers on everyone, controlling the crossing and the sheriff. She had come here looking for a new life. She had found a fight instead. The next morning, Minnie woke to the smell of smoke on the horizon. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. The older woman was standing at the window, her face pale. She said a barn on the edge of town had burned in the night. No one was hurt, but the owner had been one of the people asking questions about the ferry rates. Minnie felt her stomach clench. She found Edwin outside, standing in the street with his arms crossed, staring at the thin line of smoke rising in the distance.
Hargrove is sending a message. He knows someone is digging.
Then we need to move faster.
They spent the morning visiting houses, asking to borrow the recipe books under the pretense of wanting to try the dishes for a church supper. Most people were willing to lend them, curious about the strange recipes that called for ingredients no one had heard of. By noon, they had collected 7 books. They spread them out on the table in Edwin's room and began comparing pages. The recipes were nonsense, full of measurements that made no sense and instructions that contradicted each other. But in the margins, in tiny cramped handwriting, were notes, numbers, initials, dates. Minnie traced her finger down one page and felt her pulse quicken.
These are survey coordinates, and these initials match the names of the territorial officials.
And these dates match the meetings where the route decisions were made. This is a record of every bribe Hargrove paid.
They worked through the afternoon, copying the notes and cross-referencing them with the maps. By evening, they had a complete picture of Hargrove's scheme. He had bribed 3 officials, falsified survey reports, and paid the sheriff to look the other way when he raised his ferry rates. If the railroad followed the route he had engineered, he would control every dollar that moved through the territory. Minnie sat back, exhausted.
We have the proof. Now what?
Now we take it to the territorial governor in Little Rock, but that means crossing the river, and Hargrove controls the ferry.
Then we find another way across.
There is a shallow ford 10 miles upstream, but it is dangerous this time of year. The current is fast, and the rocks are slick.
Can we make it on horseback?
If we are careful. And if we leave tonight, before Hargrove knows we have the books.
Minnie nodded. She went back to her room and packed her few belongings, then borrowed a sturdy horse from the livery by promising to return it within the week. Edwin did the same. They met at the edge of town as the sun set, the sky streaked with red and purple. The wind was picking up, carrying the scent of smoke and dust. Edwin handed her a canteen, and checked the straps on her saddle.
Stay close to me. If the current catches you, do not fight it. Let the horse find its footing.
I know how to ride. I am not helpless.
He looked at her, his gray eyes steady.
I never thought you were.
They rode out into the dusk, following the river upstream. The salt flat gave way to scrub brush and rocky outcrops. The sound of the water grew louder, a low rushing hiss. Behind them, faint and distant, Minnie heard the sound of hoofbeats. She glanced back and saw 3 riders silhouetted against the dying light.
We are being followed.
I know. Hargrove must have found out about the books. We need to reach the ford before they catch us.
Edwin urged his horse into a gallop, and Minnie followed, the wind tearing at her shawl. The rocky ground blurred beneath them, treacherous and uneven. The hoofbeats behind them grew louder. A gunshot cracked the air and Minnie flinched, but the bullet went wide. Edwin veered left, leading them down a steep embankment toward the river. The water glittered black in the twilight, fast and cold. He did not hesitate, plunging his horse into the current. Minnie followed, gasping as the icy water soaked through her skirt. The horse stumbled on the slick rocks, and she grabbed the saddle horn, holding tight. The current pulled at them, trying to drag them downstream. Edwin was ahead, his horse lunging through the deeper water.
Keep moving! Do not stop!
Another gunshot, closer this time. Minnie heard a shout from the bank and saw one of the riders dismounting, raising his rifle. She kicked her horse hard and it surged forward, spray flying. The far bank loomed closer. Edwin reached it first and hauled his horse up onto solid ground, then turned and reached down toward her.
Give me your hand!
She grabbed his wrist and he pulled, his strength surprising. Her horse found purchase and scrambled up the bank, nearly throwing her. She held on, gasping, and together they kicked their horses into a run. The riders behind them were still at the water's edge, shouting. One fired again, but they were out of range. Edwin led them into a narrow canyon, the walls rising steep on either side. They rode hard for another hour before he finally slowed and dismounted beside a cluster of boulders. Minnie slid down, her legs shaking. Her dress was soaked, her hair falling loose from its pins. Edwin checked the horses, then came back to her.
Are you hurt?
No. Just cold.
He pulled a blanket from his saddlebag and draped it around her shoulders, then built a small fire in the shelter of the rocks. They sat close to the flames, drying out. Minnie pulled the recipe books from her satchel and checked them. They were damp, but intact.
We still have the proof.
And Hargrove knows we have it. He will send men after us. We need to reach Little Rock before he can intercept us.
How far is it?
2 days hard riding. Maybe less if we push.
Minnie nodded. She was exhausted, her whole body aching. But she felt a fierce satisfaction. They had made it across the river. They had the evidence. They were still alive. She glanced at Edwin and found him watching her, his expression unreadable.
What?
You could have turned back at the river. You could have let me go alone.
And miss all the fun?
He laughed, a low, rough sound, and shook his head.
You are either very brave or very foolish.
Maybe both.
They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling. Minnie thought about Thomas, about the man she had come here to marry. He had been kind in his letters, but he had run when it mattered. Edwin was different. He stood and fought, wry and patient and watchful. She realized she trusted him more than she had ever trusted Thomas. The thought surprised her. They slept in shifts, keeping watch. At dawn, they rowed out again, following a dry riverbed northeast. The land was flat and open, offering no cover. By midday, the sun was brutal, the heat shimmering off the ground. Minnie drank from the canteen and scanned the horizon. She saw dust rising in the distance, a thin line moving parallel to them.
They are following us.
I know. They are trying to get ahead of us, cut us off before we reach the main road.
Can we outrun them?
Not in this heat. The horses are already tired.
Edwin reined in and studied the land. To the north was a line of low hills, rocky and broken.
If we can reach those hills, we can lose them in the rocks. It will cost us time, but it is our best chance.
They turned north, pushing the horses as hard as they dared. The dust cloud behind them grew closer. Minnie heard the faint sound of hoofbeats echoing across the flat. They reached the hills just as the sun began to drop, casting long shadows. Edwin led them into a maze of narrow passages between the rocks, twisting and turning. The sounds behind them faded. They climbed higher, the ground steep and loose. At the top of a ridge, Edwin stopped and looked back. The riders were below, searching the base of the hills.
They lost us. For now.
They descended the far side and emerged onto a dusty road that ran east toward Little Rock. They rode through the night, stopping only to rest the horses. By the time the sun rose again, they were exhausted and filthy, but the city was visible on the horizon. They reached the outskirts by mid-morning and made their way to the territorial office, a squat brick building near the center of town. Inside, a clerk looked them over with suspicion. Edwin explained who they were and what they had found. The clerk disappeared into a back room and returned with a tall man in a dark suit, the territorial governor's assistant. He listened while Minnie spread the recipe books on his desk and showed him the coded notes in the margins. His expression went from skeptical to grim. He said the governor would want to see this immediately. He sent a runner to fetch the governor and asked them to wait. An hour later, the governor himself appeared, a broad-shouldered man with iron-gray hair and sharp eyes. He examined the books, compared the notes to official records, and then sat back in his chair. He said this was enough to bring charges against Ramsay Hargrove and the officials he had bribed. He said the territorial marshal would be dispatched immediately to arrest them. He thanked Edwin and Minnie for their courage and asked if they needed anything. Minnie shook her head, too tired to speak. Edwin asked for a voucher to cover their travel expenses and a letter of safe passage in case Hargrove's men tried to intercept them on the way back. The governor agreed and had the documents prepared. As they left the building, Minnie felt the weight lift from her shoulders.
We did it.
You did it. You found the map. You figured out the code. You did not run.
She looked at him and felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun.
I had help.
Partners.
He said it simply, but there was weight behind the word. Minnie nodded.
Partners.
They bought supplies and rested at a boarding house that night, then started the journey back to Sunrise Gulch the next morning. The ride was easier this time, the threat behind them. They talked as they rode, about their lives before, about what they wanted next. Edwin told her about growing up in Boston. about coming west to escape a family business he hated, about finding freedom in the open land. Minnie told him about running the boarding kitchen in Missouri, about the loneliness of being useful but never valued, about wanting more. By the time they reached the river crossing 2 days later, something had changed between them. It was unspoken, but clear. They forded the river without incident and rode into Sunrise Gulch at sunset. The town was quiet, wary. Word had already spread that the territorial marshal was coming. People watched from windows as they rode past. At the boarding house, the older woman met them at the door with tears in her eyes. She said Ramsey Hargrove had been arrested that morning, along with the sheriff and 2 of his men. The charges were bribery, fraud, and extortion. The ferry crossing would be taken over by the territory until a fare operator could be found. The stage line had already sent word that they would not reroute. Sunrise Gulch was saved. Minnie felt tears sting her own eyes. She thanked the woman and climbed the stairs to her room, suddenly overwhelmed. She sat on the edge of the bed and let herself cry, all the fear and exhaustion pouring out. A soft knock at the door made her look up. Edwin stood in the doorway, his hat in his hands.
"May I come in?"
She nodded. He sat beside her on the bed, close, but not touching.
"What will you do now?"
I do not know. I have no money, no home, no husband waiting.
You have a town that owes you their lives. And you have me, if you want.
She looked at him, her heart pounding.
What are you saying?
I am saying, I came here looking for proof of corruption, and I found something better. I found someone who does not run, someone who stands and fights, someone I want beside me, not just for this, but for everything.
Minnie felt her breath catch.
I came here looking for a partner. I thought I found him in a letter, but I was wrong. I found him on a river crossing, standing beside me when it mattered.
Then say yes.
Yes.
He smiled, that slow, wry curve of his mouth, and leaned forward to kiss her. It was gentle at first, then deeper. Months of loneliness and fear dissolving into something warm and solid. When they pulled apart, Minnie laughed, the sound bright and surprised.
I do not even know your middle name.
James. Edwin James Matthews. Cattle buyer, map maker, and now officially a partner to the bravest woman in Arkansas.
Minnie Louise Wade. Failed mail-order bride, recipe decoder, and apparently not as invisible as she thought.
They spent the evening talking, making plans. Edwin had savings, enough to buy a small property. Minnie suggested they open a freight and supply business, using the contacts Edwin had and her skills with accounts. They could base it in Sunrise Gulch, help the town rebuild. It felt right, practical, and hopeful. That night, Minnie slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The next morning she woke to the sound of church bells ringing. It was Sunday. She dressed carefully, pinning her hair and smoothing her dress. Edwin met her downstairs, clean-shaven and wearing a dark suit she had not seen before. They walked to the church together, the whole town gathering. The service was simple, the preacher speaking about resilience and gratitude. When it ended, people crowded around Minnie and Edwin, shaking their hands, thanking them. The older woman from the boarding house hugged Minnie tight and whispered that she was proud of her. Minnie felt her throat tighten. Outside, the sky was clear and bright. The late summer storms finally broken. Edwin took her hand and led her to the church doorway, where a small table had been set up. The preacher stood beside it, holding a land deed. He said the town council had voted that morning. They were gifting Minnie and Edwin a parcel of land on the edge of town, near the river. It was theirs, free and clear, in recognition of what they had done. All they had to do was sign. Minnie looked at Edwin, her heart full. He met her eyes and nodded.
Together.
They signed the deed side by side, their names ink black and permanent. The town cheered. Edwin turned to her and pulled her close, kissing her in front of everyone. Minnie laughed against his mouth, her hands gripping his shoulders. When they broke apart, she saw the older woman dabbing her eyes, the blacksmith grinning, even the doctor smiling. It felt like a beginning. The celebration continued into the afternoon. Tables were set up in the churchyard, food brought out. Minnie found herself surrounded by women asking questions, offering advice on building a house, planting a garden. Edwin stood with the men, talking about lumber and foundations. It was overwhelming and wonderful. Late in the day, Minnie and Edwin slipped away, walking toward the parcel of land that was now theirs. It sat at the edge of town, a gentle slope down to the river. The ground was dry and cracked, but there were cottonwood trees along the bank, their leaves rustling in the breeze. Edwin stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking out at the water.
We will need a well and a barn before winter.
And a house. With a kitchen big enough for a proper stove.
You planning to cook?
I am planning to run a business. But yes, I will cook. If you help.
Deal.
They walked the land together, marking spots in their minds, imagining walls and fences. Minnie felt a strange lightness in her chest, as if something heavy had finally lifted. She stopped near the riverbank and turned to Edwin.
I was so angry when I got off that stage. I thought I had been tricked, abandoned. I felt foolish.
You were not foolish. You were brave. Most people would have run.
I wanted to. But I stayed because I had nowhere else to go. And then, I stayed because it mattered.
And now?
Now I stay. Because I want to.
Edwin reached out and took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles.
I never expected this. I came here to buy cattle and avoid trouble. I thought I would be in and out in a week.
What changed?
You. You standing in that boarding house, furious and determined. You figuring out that recipe book when no one else could. You walking into danger because it was the right thing to do. I have met a lot of people, Minnie. None of them like you.
Minnie felt her eyes sting. She blinked hard, smiling.
You are not so bad yourself. For a cattle buyer.
Former cattle buyer.
What are you now?
Partner. Husband, if you will have me properly.
Minnie laughed, surprised.
Are you proposing?
I am. Right here, on our land, with the river as witness. Marry me, Minnie Wade.
Yes. Yes. I will marry you.
He kissed her again, slow and sure, and Minnie felt the last of her loneliness fall away. They stood there for a long time, holding each other, the river murmuring beside them. When they finally walked back to town, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The town was quiet now, people returning to their homes. Minnie and Edwin stopped at the boarding house. The older woman was waiting on the porch, a knowing smile on her face. She handed Minnie a small package wrapped in cloth. The woman said it was her mother's wedding ring. Simple gold, and she wanted Minnie to have it. Minnie held it carefully, her throat tight. She thanked the woman, who patted her cheek and told her to be happy. Upstairs, Edwin slid the ring onto Minnie's finger. It fit perfectly. That night they talked about the future. Edwin wanted to start building right away, before the weather turned. Minnie wanted to send word to the territorial office. Make sure the railroad knew Sunrise Gulch was open for business again. They made lists, laughed at their own ambition, and fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Minnie woke early. Edwin was already up, standing at the window, looking out at the town. She joined him, slipping her arm around his waist.
What are you thinking?
That I am glad I stayed. That I am glad you did too.
Me too.
They dressed and went downstairs. The boarding house was busy, other guests eating breakfast. Minnie poured coffee and sat beside Edwin, their shoulders touching. The older woman came over and set down a plate of biscuits. She winked at Minnie and said something about needing to fatten them both up before winter. Minnie grinned. After breakfast, they walked to the land again. This time they brought stakes and rope, marking out where the house would sit, where the barn would go. It was hard work, the sun already hot, but Minnie felt good, strong. Edwin worked beside her, driving stakes into the dry ground, his shirt sleeves rolled up. Minnie watched him, admiring the easy strength in his movements. He caught her looking and smiled.
What?
Nothing. Just appreciating the view.
Careful. You will make me blush.
I doubt that.
By midday, they had the rough outline done. They sat in the shade of a cottonwood, sharing a canteen of water. Edwin pulled out the map, the one that had caused so much trouble. He unfolded it carefully.
I am going to burn this.
Wait. Let me see it one more time.
Minnie studied the map, tracing the lines with her finger. The railroad route was clear now. The original path marked in ink. She thought about Hargrove, locked up and waiting for trial. She thought about the recipe book, safe in the marshal's hands. She thought about all the danger and fear, and how close they had come to losing everything. And then she thought about Edwin, about the ring on her finger, about the land they were standing on. She folded the map and handed it back.
Burn it. We do not need it anymore.
Edwin struck a match and held it to the corner of the map. The paper caught quickly, flames curling and blackening the ink. They watched it burn, the ashes scattering in the breeze. When it was gone, Edwin pulled Minnie close.
New start.
New start.
Over the next weeks, the town came together to help. Men arrived with lumber and tools. Women brought food and advice. The house went up quickly, a simple frame structure with a wide porch and a stone chimney. Minnie worked alongside everyone, hammering nails and sawing boards. Edwin supervised, his calm, steady presence keeping everything on track. By the time the first cold snap came, the house was finished. It was small but solid, with windows that caught the morning light and a kitchen big enough for Minnie's dreams. They moved in on a Sunday, carrying their few belongings across the threshold. That night, They sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars.
I never thought I would have this.
What?
A home. A partner. A place that feels like mine.
Ours.
Ours.
Minnie leaned her head on his shoulder. The night was cold, the air sharp, but she felt warm. Safe. Edwin's arm tightened around her.
I love you, Minnie.
I love you too.
They sat there until the stars faded and the sky began to lighten. Then they went inside, closing the door on the cold and the dark, stepping into the warmth of their new life. She answered a wedding ad and found the groom missing in a deadly trap. Minnie Wade arrives in Sunrise Gulch expecting a husband, but finds only an empty room and a dangerous mystery. When a quiet cattle buyer with a deadly map steps in to help, they uncover a conspiracy that threatens the entire town. Together, they must outwit a ruthless villain, decode secret messages, and fight for their survival in the wild Arkansas frontier. A gripping tale of danger, courage, and unexpected love in the untamed West. Subscribe for more thrilling Wild West stories. Wild West romance, mail-order bride story, frontier love story, Western adventure, Arkansas frontier, 1890s romance, cowboy romance, historical Western, suspense romance, action romance, survival story, true love story, Wild West tales, Old West stories, romantic drama, colorized late 1800s American West photograph. Natural light, gentle contrast, slightly soft focus, subtle film grain, faint dust/scratches, slight vignetting, no text, no watermark. Dramatic moment showing female late 20s with auburn hair and green eyes, wearing deep blue travel dress, and bonnet stepping off a stagecoach into dusty street. Male late 30s with dark brown hair and blue eyes, wearing dark coat and cowboy hat rushing forward to steady her with protective urgency. Her face shoe, wing shock and fear as she clutches a small carpet bag. His expression determined and watchful, dangerous tension in the air. Late summer afternoon, harsh sunlight, casting long shadows. Wooden boardwalk and saloon facade in mid-ground. Distant figures watching from doorways. Dust kicked up by stagecoach wheels in foreground. Storm clouds gathering on horizon in background. Sense of immediate danger and uncertain arrival. Photorealistic cinematic style. Shot on cinema camera. Natural golden hour lighting. Shallow depth of field with soft bokeh background. Warm beige and amber color grading. Looks like a film still from a premium Western romance movie. Authentic 1800s period photography aesthetic. Professional portrait photog. Rafi quality. Dus/Thuand. Pulled her close, kissing her in front of everyone. The crowd whistled and clapped. Minnie laughed against his mouth, feeling lighter than she had in years. When they broke apart, Edwin kept his arm around her waist.
Ready to go see our land?
More than ready.
They walked together down the church steps, the whole town watching them go. The sun was warm on Minnie's shoulders, the air clear and sweet. They followed the path toward the river, past the livery and the general store, out to where the land opened up. The parcel was beautiful, a gentle slope with cottonwood trees and a clear view of the water. Edwin stood beside her, his hand warm in hers.
We can build here. A house. A barn. Maybe a storefront for the freight business.
And a garden. I want a garden with herbs and vegetables.
Whatever you want.
Minnie turned to face him, her heart full.
I came here looking for a safe life. I thought I needed a husband from a newspaper ad to give me that. But I was wrong. Safety is not about a name on a marriage license. It is about standing beside someone who sees you, who trusts you, who fights with you.
Then let me stand beside you for the rest of our lives. Marry me, Minnie. Not because of an ad or a contract. Because I love you.
Minnie felt tears prick her eyes.
Yes. Yes. I will marry you.
He kissed her again, slow and deep, and Minnie felt the last of her fears slip away. She had come to Sunrise Gulch alone and desperate. She had found danger, betrayal, and a conspiracy that nearly destroyed her. But she had also found courage she did not know she had. She had found a town worth saving, and she had found a man who loved her, not for what she could give him, but for who she was. They stood together on their land, the river flowing behind them, the sun climbing higher. Minnie thought of the recipe book, safely locked in the bank vault. She thought of Hargrove in chains, awaiting trial. She thought of the future stretching out before them, uncertain, but full of promise. Edwin squeezed her hand.
What are you thinking?
That I am exactly where I am supposed to be.
He smiled, that wry, patient smile that made her heart skip.
Me too.
They walked back toward town together, planning and dreaming. The church bells rang again, calling people to the noon meal. Minnie felt the eyes of the townspeople on them, warm and welcoming. She was no longer the stranger who stepped off the stagecoach into a trap. She was Minnie Wade, partner to Edwin Matthews, co-owner of a new freight business, and a woman who had helped save Sunrise Gulch. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Edwin and Minnie worked together every day, drawing up plans for their house and business. The town council officially rerouted the stage line back through Sunrise Gulch, and travelers started arriving again. The general store reopened, the saloon hired new staff, and the ferry crossing was taken over by a cooperative of local men who charged fair rates. Hargrove's trial was set for the following month in Little Rock. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The sheriff had resigned in disgrace, and a new lawman was appointed, a steady older man from Fort Smith who had no ties to Hargrove. Minnie and Edwin were called as key witnesses. They would travel together to Little Rock when the time came, but for now, they focused on building their life. One evening, as they sat on the porch of the boarding house watching the sunset, Edwin pulled a small box from his pocket.
I know we already said yes to each other, but I wanted to do this properly.
He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, delicate and perfect.
Will you marry me, Minnie Wade?
Yes. 1,000 times yes.
He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Minnie looked down at it, her vision blurring with happy tears.
When?
Soon as you want.
Next Sunday. Right here in Sunrise Gulch.
Perfect.
They married the following Sunday in the little church, the whole town in attendance. Minnie wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, with lace at the collar. Edwin wore his dark suit and a new hat. The preacher spoke about love and partnership, about facing hardship together. When he pronounced them husband and wife, Edwin kissed Minnie with such tenderness that she felt her knees go weak. The town threw a celebration afterward, with music and dancing and food brought by every family. Minnie danced with Edwin under the stars, his arms strong around her, and felt a joy so complete it took her breath away. Later that night, they walked to their land. The foundation for their house had been laid. The framing started. Edwin had been working on it every spare moment. They stood together in the moonlight, looking at the skeleton of their future home.
It will be finished by fall.
I cannot wait to see it.
I cannot wait to wake up beside you every morning in it.
Minnie leaned into him, her head on his shoulder.
I love you, Edwin Matthews.
I love you, Minnie Matthews.
They stood there a long time, the river murmuring behind them, the stars bright overhead. Minnie thought of the journey that had brought her here, the fear and desperation, the moments of terror and doubt. But she also thought of the strength she had discovered, the friendships she had made, the love she had found. She had come to Sunrise Gulch looking for safety. She had found something far better. She had found a home. The weeks that followed were filled with hard work and quiet happiness. Edwin and Minnie threw themselves into building their business and their home. Every morning they rose early, working side by side. Edwin handled negotiations with ranchers and merchants, securing contracts for freight and supply routes. Minnie managed the books and correspondence, her sharp mind making sense of ledgers and schedules. They made a formidable team. The house went up quickly with help from the town. Men came on Saturdays to raise walls and lay floorboards. Women brought food and helped Minnie plan the interior. By mid-autumn, the house was finished. A simple 2-story frame building with a wide porch and windows that caught the morning light. Minnie planted a small garden beside it, herbs and vegetables that would see them through winter. Inside, she arranged their few belongings with care, making each room feel warm and lived in. Edwin built her a desk near the front window, where she could work on the accounts and watch the road. He carved their initials into the doorframe, a permanent mark of their claim. One evening as they sat by the fireplace, Edwin showed Minnie the map again, the one that had caused so much trouble.
I have been thinking about this. The routes it shows could still be valuable, just not the way Hargrove intended.
What do you mean?
We could use it to plan better freight routes, avoid the toll crossings, help smaller ranchers get their goods to market without being squeezed. Turn Hargrove's greed into something useful.
I like that. Justice and profit in one.
Exactly.
They spent hours that night sketching new routes, talking through logistics. Minnie felt a thrill of excitement. This was more than just survival. This was building something that mattered. The trial in Little Rock came in late October. Minnie and Edwin traveled together by stage, spending 2 nights in a hotel. The courtroom was crowded, packed with people who had been victimized by Hargrove's schemes. Minnie testified clearly and calmly, describing the threats, the coercion, the way Hargrove had manipulated the town. Edwin presented the map and explained its significance. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Hargrove was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 20 years in the territorial prison. As the sentence was read, Minnie felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It was over. Truly over. On the journey back to Sunrise Gulch, Edwin held her hand.
How do you feel?
Free. For the first time in months, I feel completely free.
Good. Because I have plans for us, Minnie Matthews. Big plans.
Tell me.
We expand the business, hire a few men to handle the freight runs, Maybe open a small store in town, sell supplies and goods. You run it. I handle the roots. We build something that lasts.
I love it. Let us do it.
They returned home to find the town had hung a banner across the main street welcoming them back. There was another celebration, smaller but no less heartfelt. Minnie stood on the porch of their house that night, looking out at the town she had grown to love. Edwin came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist.
Happy? I see you're warned and unresting she were tands off for some time, compared to less of the time. The war the wind stas but that 4 year in love corns. There were their love place, with a lust lots mark again.
More than I ever thought possible.
Good. Because I intend to keep you that way for the next 50 years.
Only 50?
At least 50. Maybe 60, if you are lucky.
Minnie laughed and turned in his arms, kissing him. The night was cool, the stars brilliant overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. The river whispered its endless song. And Minnie knew, with absolute certainty, that she was exactly where she belonged. Winter came to Sunrise Gulch with cold winds and frost that glittered on the grass at dawn. Minnie and Edwin moved into their finished house in early November. It was small, but solid, with a stone fireplace, 2 bedrooms, and a wide front porch. Minnie hung curtains she had sewn herself and arranged furniture Edwin had built. The kitchen had a new cast-iron stove, and she loved cooking on it, experimenting with recipes from the decoded book. Edwin worked long days establishing the freight business. He hired 2 local men, both honest and hardworking, and together they began running regular routes between Sunrise Gulch and the surrounding towns. The new routes Edwin had planned avoided the old toll crossings and saved ranchers money. Word spread quickly, and business grew. Minnie opened the store in December, renting a small building on the main street. She stocked dry goods, tools, fabric, and canned supplies. She also kept a lending library in the back, a collection of books donated by townspeople. It became a gathering place, especially for women who came to trade news and share stories. One cold afternoon in mid-December, Minnie was arranging bolts of fabric when the door opened, and a young woman entered, holding a baby bundled in blankets. She looked tired and uncertain. Minnie recognized her vaguely, a settler's wife from one of the outlying claims.
Can I help you?
The woman hesitated, then spoke quietly. She said her husband had been injured in a fall and could not work. They had no money for supplies. She did not know what to do. Minnie felt a sharp pang of recognition. She remembered her own desperation, her own fear.
What do you need?
The woman listed a few basics: flour, beans, lamp oil. Minnie gathered the items and wrapped them carefully.
Take these. Pay me when you can. Or do not pay at all. Just take care of your family.
The woman's eyes filled with tears. She thanked Minnie over and over, clutching the bundle. When she left, Minnie stood at the counter, feeling a quiet satisfaction. This was what the store could be. Not just commerce, but community. That evening she told Edwin about it. He listened, then nodded.
You did the right thing. We have enough. We can afford to help.
I thought you might say that.
Because you know me.
I do.
Christmas came, and the town held a service in the church, followed by a meal in the community hall. Minnie and Edwin contributed a roasted turkey and pies. They sat together at a long table, surrounded by friends and neighbors, and Minnie felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire in the hearth. After the meal, Edwin pulled her aside.
I have something for you.
He handed her a small package wrapped in brown paper. Minnie unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound journal, the pages blank and waiting.
For your recipes. And anything else you want to write.
Edwin, it is beautiful.
So are you.
She kissed him, tasting cider and cinnamon on his lips.
I have something for you too.
She handed him a package. He opened it to find a new map case, hand-tooled leather, with his initials embossed on the front.
Minnie, this is perfect.
For all the routes you are going to map, all the places we are going to go.
Together.
Always together.
The new year arrived with snow, unusual for Arkansas, but welcome. The world turned white and quiet. Minnie and Edwin spent the evenings by the fire, talking and planning. In February, Minnie realized she was pregnant. She told Edwin one night after supper, her heart pounding.
We are going to have a baby.
Edwin stared at her, his face going through a series of emotions: shock, wonder, joy. Then he laughed, a sound of pure delight, and pulled her into his arms.
A baby. Minnie, we are going to have a baby.
Are you happy?
Happy does not cover it. I am overwhelmed, terrified, thrilled.
Me too.
You are going to be an amazing mother.
And you are going to be an amazing father.
They held each other, the future unfolding before them. Spring came early, bringing wildflowers and warm rains. The town continued to grow. A new stage line was established, running through Sunrise Gulch on a regular schedule. The threat of the town fading away was gone. Minnie's store thrived. Edwin's freight business expanded. They were building something lasting, something good. One afternoon in late April, Minnie stood on the porch of their house, her hand resting on the small swell of her belly. Edwin came up the road, riding his horse, his hat tipped back, and a smile on his face. He dismounted and walked to her, pulling her close.
How are you feeling?
Good. Tired, but good.
You should rest.
I will. In a minute. Right now, I just want to stand here with you.
He kissed her forehead, his hand joining hers on her belly.
I love you, Minnie.
I love you too.
They stood together in the afternoon sun, the river shining in the distance, the town alive and bustling behind them. Minnie thought of the girl who had stepped off the stagecoach months ago, terrified and alone, searching for a groom who did not exist. She had found something better. She had found herself. She had found love. She had found home.